All right. Hey, happy Monday. It's your afternoon girlfriend, Yvonne Daniels, Kiss 107.1. Thank you so much for joining us for a very special social stream live. I told you we were going to be going live today, and I've just been talking to this gentleman, and man, so just excited to get into the conversation. Let me introduce him first. This is Dr. I'm going to give you a whole name, okay,
The
Dr.
whole thing.
Cedric Jamie Rutland, this is a long title too. We're going to break this down. Pulmonary and critical, let's see, let me get it right. Pulmonary and critical care physician with the American Lung Association. Wow, that's a mouthful. So break that down for us real quick.
So I'm a pulmonary critical care and internal medicine physician, right? Which means I got 3 boards in those medical subspecialties. And then I'm also the national spokesperson for the American Lung Association, where I participate in projects such as this.
Okay, all right, cool. So of course, we are here. We are talking about, if you've seen kind of like the title on our Facebook and YouTube channel, you know that we're going to be talking about the vaccine. So important. That's like hot button. Everybody's talking about it. Trying to get folks to get vaccinated, trying to get the information out. And what you all have done is you've actually teamed up with the Center for Black Health and Equity for grassroots vaccine education, because we know that there's a lot of I don't know if there's misinformation, but we want to get the right information out there about the vaccine, because we know that's a critical area that we need to be informed about to make sure that we, I guess, flatten the curve, or what if they're still calling that with COVID-19. Is that, why are you laughing at me like that? Is that what they're still calling it, or no?
Yeah, yes, that's still what they're calling it. Yeah, flatten the curve.
Okay.
I mean, I think, I think what you said is important. I think it's very important not to tell people what to do. I think what's better is showing people the way. So in other words, what I mean by that is explain what illness is. Explain how your body gets through illness. Through that, you can understand why vaccination is important. And then once you understand the science and you've used your trusted resources like the American Lung Association and lung.org, then you come to your own conclusion. And you have sort of like an informed consent, right? An informed decision, and you're able to make probably the appropriate decision.
Okay. All right. And so as we're talking, as you've teamed up with the Center for Black Health and Equity, of course, we are looking at how it's affecting the African-American community. And we know that there are a lot of folks in the African-American community that are kind of like skeptical, that are frightened because of just stuff in the past and the, medically that's been done. And something that was cited was the Tuskegee effect. So you can kind of understand why that is, but tell folks, especially in those hardest hit communities, why maybe, you don't need to look back to that to look at what this can do for you and how this can benefit, and that this is not back then.
Right. So it's not back then, right? But it doesn't mean that back then didn't happen. So I understand why people are skeptical, why people don't trust the medical community. I get that. I'm with that. But when you look at the communities that have been impacted the most, Blacks and Latinos are more likely to be hospitalized and more likely to die secondary to COVID-19. If we're also more likely to hesitate on vaccination, and we are, then what that means is it's going to widen that gap. So we're going to be hit even harder because we're not getting vaccinated. And so we really got to spend some time educating the community on immunology, on illness, on how these vaccines work, how to get the vaccine, because that's what's going to lead to better outcomes overall. It already has done that in a lot of communities, and even our community to a certain extent, but we got to do more of that. And I think when you download our toolkit on lung.org, the toolkit that we created along with the Center for Black Health and Equity, you'll be able to read this information, absorb it, and understand why vaccination is important without being told to go get a vaccination.
Okay, and we've got that right there on the screen, lung.org, so you can go there and get the information. So what about people that have said, I've taken the vaccine, didn't feel well, felt sick, What about people that have had that experience?
Well, you're supposed to. So here's the way that illness works, right? So you remember, like that Chris Rock skit from a long time ago, like, people want credit for things they're supposed to do. Like you're supposed to feel this way. The way you get sick, when you ingest a virus or you inhale a virus, your immune system gets activated. Your immune system knows what the virus is. It says, okay, I don't like this. recruits over a whole bunch of cells. You break it up, you split it into pieces. And as you're doing that, all these molecules that are created cause you to have fever, cause you to have cough, cause you to have fatigue, cause you to generally not feel good. Okay. But that process takes place for about a week, right? 7 to 10 days or so, because then you generate those antibodies and things of that sort. When you get a vaccination, the same thing is happening. The substance that's being injected is a foreign substance. So you're going to feel those same symptoms. You're just not going to have them as severe or for as long. It's going to be like a day and a half, as opposed to 7 to 10 days. But when you get exposed to it the next time, your body recognizes the virus. It recognizes the piece. And when it does that, it gets rid of it that much quicker. And so that the concept of vaccination is important. I'm going to tell you a little known story. There was in the 1700s, an African slave was the one person who introduced the concept of vaccination in the United States. Nobody knows this. The slave's name was Onesimus. During the 1700s, during the smallpox pandemic, what he suggested to his slave master in 1716, he told his slave master, he said, hey, look, what we did in Africa was we popped those little pustules from smallpox and we put them in broken skin. And for some reason, when we did that, the person who was exposed to smallpox didn't get it. So what this slave master did with his physician is years later, they then inoculated 242 people with those pustules, the exact way the slave showed them how to do it. And only 6 out of those 242 people died, whereas 1 out of 6 people with smallpox in Boston during that era died. And that was the introduction of the concept of vaccination. So really, what Black people should be mad at, what we should be mad at, is that story is not being told. Because that would have a significant impact on the decisions that we make. If we knew that a brother created it and came up with that concept, we're most likely to hug that concept, which I think is important.
Definitely, to trace it all the way back there, because what they're trying to do now is to say, how many African Americans have been involved with this vaccination, trying to say, okay, we've got Black folks that have been, involved in the, the creation of this vaccination. It's been tested on Black folks and all that kind of stuff. But you're right, that is very important and a little known Black history fact. So
Black history facts. Yeah.
So another question that I have, and I've heard people asking as well, is I've been hearing, maybe you can clear this up, that you will have to take this vaccination every year. This will be kind of like the flu vaccine, that you're going to have to go and get one every year.
No one knows the answer to that question.
Okay.
So again, this is the first time in probably the history of the world in which we're studying the sequence of this virus on pretty much a daily basis. And so immunologically, your body is prepared to deal with viruses that mutate a lot. There's so many different levels of the immune system, from antibodies to B cells to T cells to natural killer cells to macrophages to dendritic cells, that all these layers work together to make certain that when processes like mutations happen, we can still recognize that this virus is a coronavirus and still clear it. And in science, what's happening is everybody is studying only one layer, right? You only hear about the antibody layer, the antibodies. It's because it's easy to study. And so it's a lot harder to answer that question. The way that I would answer it is like this. Until I start seeing people who have been vaccinated present to the hospital with coronavirus or present to the ICU or die of coronavirus, I'm not going to concern myself with getting another vaccination, because in the real world, that doesn't really happen once you're vaccinated, at least. I have yet to see somebody that's vaccinated in the ICU. Okay.
So definitely a positive. And another question, I think I just saw a story today about AstraZeneca, the AstraZeneca vaccine that's supposed to be 100% effective. You've got maybe 3 or 4 that I've heard of: Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca. Right. One that you would say, that you would, not that I want to say, okay, take this one instead of that one, but as far as efficacy, is it better to just one that's 100% effective, or maybe it's okay to take the Johnson & Johnson as long as you take one?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It's so funny how the public has been interested in this concept of efficacy. The way that efficacy was defined in all these clinical trials was having the virus, right? But efficacy should have been defined as presenting to the ICU or dying. So with any vaccine, no one's going to the ICU. No one is dying of coronavirus. That's what's important. These vaccines are being undersold. So forget this 67% or 75 or 95%. You're not going to have traces of the virus. I don't care. I don't care if the virus becomes a cold and I'm at home. I don't care. Right? I don't want to be in the hospital. I don't want to be in the ICU. And that's what's important.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's really good, because if you get the virus and if you've got the vaccine and it knocks it out, and it's maybe just like cold symptoms or whatever, you can treat that at home, right? But this to prevent you having to go get on a ventilator in the hospital. Right. Okay, that's something I didn't know before this interview. So thank you very much for that. That's very important. This is all stuff that you're going to be able to find, that our listeners are going to be able to find on lung.org, right?
Right, exactly. When you go to lung.org, you'll be able to download the COVID-19 vaccination toolkit. You'll also be able to see significant amounts of information as it pertains to COVID-19, and not only COVID-19, right? We're a lung organization. So you'll find information on lung.org on lung cancer, air pollution, smoking and smoking cessation, vaping, amongst many other things. Okay.
All right, cool. Well, this is, I don't want to take up all your time. I know you are talking to a lot of folks. We appreciate you stopping by and giving us this information. And once again, this is Dr. Jamie. I just like calling you Dr. Jamie, though.
That's fine.
With the American Lung Association. And we appreciate you all teaming up with the Center for Black Health and Equity for grassroots vaccination education. You can get all of the information he's talked about and more at lung.org. And the main thing is to tell folks, of course, from your perspective, to get that vaccine, because it's going to keep you from dying, right?
That's exactly true.
That's it. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for your time. I do appreciate you. And maybe I get a chance to talk to you at another date. But until then, great day. Okay.
All right. Just let me know. Thanks, Yvonne.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, that was, did I end it? Yes, I want to end it.